Another early contender for my favorite book of 2024. Hello and welcome back to Bookish, and welcome to my review of Cuddy by Benjamin Myers. This is a work of historical fiction, which I had heard about last summer, I think, was the first time I heard somebody talk about it. I saw Bob the Booker review the book positively. Katie from Books and Things has reviewed the book positively, and I got myself a copy of it, which I ordered, I think, through Amazon, and they were able to arrange, however they have an arrangement with some company or some business in Great Britain, sent the copy, and I got it. I finally got to it this month, and I'm really happy that I did. This is going to be a completely informal review. I've written down no notes, so I shouldn't be looking down to remind myself of anything. And I just wanted to try to give you an impression of the novel and why I thought it was so good. So the title of the novel is Cuddy, and that refers to the affectionate name apparently that people in the northern parts of England have for Saint Cuthbert, who was a religious figure in, I want to say, sometime around the 700s in that part of England and Scotland, who kind of became famous for the way he lived his life and the way that he evangelized and helped spread Christianity through that part of the world. At various times he was like the principal kind of priest, monk at various abbeys, ending up at Lindisfarne Island on an abbey, and then, as he felt death approaching, separated himself off onto an even smaller island where he essentially lived on his own until his death. His lifetime coincided with, or his death at least, coincided with, his life and death, coincided with invasions of England by Vikings, by the Danes, who oftentimes attacked abbeys and monasteries because they had sources of wealth. They were pretty easy pickings because the men there were largely unarmed. So when it seemed like there were going to be more invasions of northern England after St. Cuthbert's death, they dug his body up, which they said had been, completely uncorrupted. It was completely intact. They put it in a coffin and they moved it from the place where it had been buried. And after that, kind of a cult of people, priests and monks, etc., is formed, which basically transports his body all over the north of England for, I think, more than 100 years, until they found a place where they thought was worthy of him being buried and where a cathedral was built. So that's all just kind of the history of St. Cuthbert. Those are not really spoilers for the book because you can read the first 2 or 3 pages and get the history of St. Cuthbert. What the book then itself is I thought an incredibly effective relocation of you as the reader into all these different time periods surrounding St. Cuthbert's life and the creation of his cathedral, and the events surrounding that. I thought it was done in an incredibly effective way. If you're a fan of Northwoods by what was his name, Gregory Mason, that's his name, Daniel Mason. If you're a fan of Northwoods, I think you'll find this book to be in that same vein, even though I think this one is, to me, far superior, in part because it doesn't try to do quite as much. So we began among this cult of people devoted to finding a place to permanently bury St. Cuthbert. And that part of the novel, and the novel is divided into 4 big parts, that part of the novel is really kind of told in almost verse. If you want to think about like how you would read Chaucer, or how Chaucer wrote the Canterbury Tales, is in this almost kind of style of verse. It's written like that. And it becomes clear from that, at that point, that the book embraces the idea of the spiritual reality of St. Cuthbert, of his sainthood, of his ability, not only devotion of people to him, but of his ability to perhaps interact with and affect and kind of guide things done by the other characters. And that part's just brilliant. We get to know the monks who are carrying St. Cuthbert's body around, and the other people who attend those monks, and you get an idea of the hardship that they went through. We get some of their names. And then we move on to the next section. And the next section is, I want to say, 300-400 years into the future, in which a cathedral is being built for St. Cuthbert. And we see the construction of the cathedral to a certain extent. We see the work of stonemasons, we are introduced to a new set of characters who bear some resemblance to the characters from the first section, and we get an idea of that kind of life in sort of the Middle Ages in Great Britain. And there's a whole dramatic story there, and then we're kind of transported into the early 1800s, where we see an effort to exhume St. Cuthbert's body to see if his body really has remained uncorrupted, if he's still completely intact, and that involves a whole nother set of characters. And then finally we get kind of a modern story about a young man who is dealing with a lot of stresses in his life. His education and economic situation has been limited by circumstances, who gets to work with a crew that is restoring St. Cuthbert's Cathedral, and we see the characters, and we're introduced to him and the other characters in the novel who also somewhat resemble some of the characters from the other sections. It just really works together brilliantly, I think, in the way in which a work of historical fiction that is taken as to its creative limits can actually work. We are placed in all these worlds. The modern one, which we obviously recognize, we're placed in all these worlds and all these time periods, and the thoughts and the beliefs and the ideas of all these people in just a brilliant way. And in addition to that, the novel itself is written, as I kind of intimated, in different styles. We have kind of the verse style, which is the first section. We have what I'm going to refer to as kind of a period thriller style in the second section. In the third section, it's kind of told like a ghost story, which reminded me a lot of the kind of story that might have been written by Edgar Allan Poe, because there's a tinge of insanity there. And then we just have this modern day story, which feels like a modern day contemporary story dealing with a young man struggling with all kinds of issues. And at the heart of all this is the cathedral and St. Cuthbert, and the impact the cathedral has on people, and the way in which the spirit of St. Cuthbert affects all these different periods, different periods of time. And I just thought it was really, really great. As you can probably pick up on this, there are elements of the supernatural here, which people would refer to as magical realism, but I think it just really enhances kind of the what I think, to a certain extent, is the intent to create this kind of epic story for Northern England centered around St. Cuthbert. I just thought it was a great novel, a great work of historical fiction, a great work of imaginative fiction, and I would highly recommend it to everybody. Anyway, if you've read Cuddy or have any other thoughts about my review of Cuddy, please leave your comments in the comment section down below, and as always, thank you for watching.